I like to think of day-to-day life as just this magical cosmic game or adventure. And I'm like, what if every little moment along the way is like an opportunity for magic and synchronicities and realizations? And then it starts to be exactly that because we're expecting it.
Mm, yeah.
It's so fun.
Hello, and welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm Brittany Cates, your host on this incredible journey of career transformation. Get ready for inspiring stories, valuable insights, and a roadmap to shift your mindset towards a more fulfilling professional life. In each episode, we explore the remarkable journeys of individuals who made a career change, offering motivation, strategies, and the confidence to pursue your dreams. Whether you're feeling stuck, contemplating a change, or just seeking a dose of inspiration, this podcast is your weekly companion. Tune in every Thursday as we uncover the secrets to shifting your day job. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Before I jump into introducing my guest, I'd like to ask you a question. Are you ready to make a career change, but you just feel stuck, like you don't know the next steps to take in order to make it happen? Well, I have a brand new free resource called the Career Transition Blueprint, and it's 12 questions that will lead you to not only determining where you are in your career change journey, but it will also help you figure out what your next right step is. So if you're interested in getting some clarity around what actions you can take to start moving towards the career of your dreams, please connect with me on Instagram at Shift Your Day Job or go to my website, brittanycates.com, and you can access your free career transition blueprint from there. I look forward to helping you take your first or your next step towards shifting your day job. On today's episode, I'm joined by Sandra Possing. She's a life coach who shares her unconventional career journey through a myriad of careers until she found her true path. Sandra talks about realizing early on that having a traditional job just didn't fit who she was. And as she transitioned and tried multiple career avenues, she was able to start uncovering what it was that truly ignited her passion and eventually found her way to personal development, which led her into life coaching, and she's never looked back. She now owns her own coaching company while traveling worldwide as a digital nomad, and she helps millennial women break through what's holding them back and create extraordinary lives that they love. In her free time, Sandra enjoys fitness and lifting weights at the gym. She is also excited to share that she is pregnant for the first time at the age of 44 years old and is looking forward to her next adventure in parenting. So without further ado, please welcome Sandra to the podcast. Hi, Sandra. Welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. I would love for you to share with my listeners like your career journey and what you used to do, what you're doing now, and what that path looked like for you.
It was a very windy path, to say the least. If I look back at it now, just zigzags all over the place. It, at the time, was very random. Now, when I look back, I can connect the dots and see the overarching themes that led me to where I am today. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. At the time, I just felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like wandering around randomly trying stuff. So the short version is after college, I graduated from UCLA and full of enthusiasm, moved up to the Bay Area and was like, okay, let me start this whole career thing. I got a degree in anthropology, which for anybody who's familiar with that field, it typically leads to being in academia, being a researcher, archaeology, things like that. I wasn't interested in any of the traditional anthropology paths. I just knew I liked people. I was like, I like people. I like how we're different. I like how we're the same, but that didn't really point me toward any particular career. So I just started trying things. I give my 20-year-old self so much credit because I was scrappy and resourceful and I just figured it out. But basically, I just tried a bunch of random stuff. And when I was in between respectable quote unquote jobs, I was doing anything I could think of. I worked in the service industry, worked at a bunch of restaurants. I bartended for multiple years. I somehow kept getting roped into working for startups with friends, like kind of not on purpose. People would just, I was always drawn to really bright, innovative people challenging the status quo. And I had a lot of just super nerdy computer science kind of friends from college and beyond. So I kept ending up at these, I worked for two different music tech startups, not doing coding or anything like that. I was like the token like marketing gal in those situations usually. And so I learned a lot of things. I learned that I like to be around entrepreneurs. I like doing things that are unconventional. But in the meantime, I was trying to figure out what the heck I was supposed to be when I grew up. So I was very much like the good girl, the people pleaser, like trying to do the right thing. None of the normal stuff felt right to me. The closest thing to a normal job I ever had was probably two things. I worked as an IT recruiter for a hot second, 3 whole months. And I worked in finance, what I would call the less sexy side of finance. So selling life insurance and long-term care policies and disability, things like that. I did that for a couple of years. And basically my takeaway from that was like, yep, not finance. Nope, not that. But overall in my 20s, I was like, the whole 9 to 5 thing is not going to work for me. I'm from Scandinavia originally. My whole family's there. I love to travel. I grew up traveling with my family. And I was like, this whole American dream of 2 weeks, like work a job, climb the ladder, 2 weeks of vacation. I was like, that's not going to work for me. But I had no idea what would. And so I kept searching and then eventually got into fitness just by accident. I took a boot camp class and then somebody was like, come be a trainer for this company. And I was like, well, okay, you're going to pay me to work out. No complaints. So I did that for 7 or 8 years, ended up absolutely loving it. However, I was like, this isn't it. It's not fitness, but this whole empowering people thing. And then through fitness, I started meeting more coaches. What is this whole coaching world thing? Y'all seem to like what you do. You're helping people. You're like in charge of your own schedules. What is this? And I basically interrogated as many of them as I could find. I went into investigative journalist mode and realized this kind of feels like dream job status. Eventually found the coach training company I ended up going with and basically took one step in the door during the first coach training class and was like, I am home. This is where I belong. And then the rest is history. And that was 12 years ago.
Awesome. What kind of coach are you? Life coach, or is it more niched?
I am actually one of the non-life coaches, and it's not for lack of trying to niche down because every marketing guru and all the business coaches will tell you, and I totally understand the point of niching, and I have tried so many times, but very on brand for me. I don't like to be told what to do, and I don't like to be put in any sort of box. And ultimately, I've always come back to actually what I love the most is being a life coach. I'm in the Bay Area, so I get a lot of people who are very driven, very high achieving. They're like career peeps. And so by default, ended up doing a lot of career coaching over the years. But I don't identify as a career coach. I never have. I help them figure out who they are, what they want, and then go get it. Sometimes it's career, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's relationships, but it's always underneath it all, it's their relationship with themselves and it's lifestyle design. So it's empowerment and manifestation, it's authenticity and alignment.
Yeah, I love that. And my goal with my podcast and my coaching is very similar. It's not just about career coaching, it is about the mindset piece and really building that confidence and that belief and taking the aligned action necessary to start transforming your life in the career space. That was a big pain point for me for so long that I want to help other people do what I did. It is all the internal work of knowing who you are, learning about yourself, trusting yourself, taking the actions that feel good. Yeah, I love that.
We live in such an exciting time right now. I think a lot of previous generations wouldn't have had the possibility or the privilege to be able to create a business based on what you like or a passion, or even just find jobs that are online or remote and things like that. It's like back in the day, it was like, you want to work at the corner store or be a doctor or lawyer, just so many traditional things. I'm so grateful to be part of a generation or generations where it's like, there are so many things available to us now with limitless possibilities come endless choices. And how do you narrow it down? But man, what a cool time to be alive.
Yeah, that is true. And it's really interesting because we have both of those generations coexisting, right? And when your parents or grandparents are like, what are you doing? How are you navigating and maintaining? No, things have changed and I'm allowed to, or I'm now able to, and therefore I'm allowing myself more flexibility, more freedom, a different way of working.
I think a long time ago, thanks to some mantras from different mentors and things, I recognized that, you know what? I am no longer available for taking any advice from anyone who doesn't have what I want. So I'm not going to take any life advice from anyone who doesn't have a life I want, relationship advice from someone who doesn't have a relationship, and same thing with business and career. So that way, I try to be very open to, at least for me personally, I try to be open to parents and generations and even just older friends who are boomers who don't understand what I do or try to criticize it in different ways. And I'm like, I can just respect their opinion, be curious about what they think and why they think that, and then not take any of it to heart. Be like, I will
Yep.
listen to them and thank them for their feedback and then walk away and be like, I'm not going to take any of that advice because they're coming from such a different perspective and that's okay. I try to very intentionally only listen to guidance from people who have what I want. And then I think we can have conversations with people of different generations who may or may not understand it and try to do it with just grace and curiosity instead of having these debates that are going to go nowhere. And I think I just let go of the idea that I need to convince anyone or make them understand and they can think what they want. I'm sure so many of people in my parents' generation have no idea what I'm even talking about or what this is, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few bits and pieces in there that stood out to me, like not taking things personally, choosing who you're listening to and being and letting them, like the Mel Robbins, let them, what is it, concept or whatever, if that's what they want or they choose to believe, or if that's how they choose to live their life, or if that's the career they want, let them. They're allowed. And I'm allowed to do it my way too. Like it's not one or the other. They can both exist.
I think for all of us, regardless of generation or what kind of career path we're in, the more we can just be wildly curious
Yeah.
about what other people are doing, we may learn so much that we can apply to our own industry or our own path just by being curious and asking questions. The thing that breaks my heart is when I see people like, so I work with mostly millennials and some Gen Xers, and when they genuinely want to go do something, like say start a business or pursue something that's a little unconventional, and they come from a family of people who are working very traditional jobs. And with the best of intentions, all of their family and friends are like, don't be a crazy person. What are you doing? That's too risky. Go get a real job, blah, blah, blah. And it breaks my heart. And I just want to go bop all those people on the head and be like, let them do their thing. But I think the more that we can just let people figure their stuff out on their own and encourage them to try things, encourage them to experiment and encourage them to fail and learn from it versus just the thing that kills me the most is watching how small so many of us play because of we're living our life based on shoulds and supposed tos and what other people think. And man, nothing will kill a dream and a potential like limitless possibility type of path than worrying what other people think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this idea of following the like traditional path is there's a lot of underlying things about it, right? Like it's this idea of community and like belonging, right? So we don't want to break the status quo because we want to belong and be accepted in our circle. And then also like safety, right? And people that love you want to keep you safe. And in their mind, this is the way to be safe. I think it's really important, especially as human beings, to recognize that life is meant to be lived, right? And to have experiences, and failure is part of the process. And how much are you going to actually fail? What's the worst case scenario, right? Like, I walk away from my job. Is that really going to be your worst case scenario? Most likely not, especially if you're already a high achiever. You're going to figure something out and it's not going to be as bad as what people are worried about.
There's so much self trust to be gained by daring to do things that feel more authentic and daring to do things that we actually like being more desire led and trying stuff, even if it's hard and scary and we fail along the way versus just following the guidelines that have been handed down to us from society or family or whoever, even with the best of intentions. that we're not actually cultivating any self-trust. We're not really learning who we are. We're just like following some blueprint blindly. And yes, to your point, like it's so scary to, especially if you have a family or a community that are all doing one thing and you're trying to do the other thing. And they're like, what? And you risk getting kicked out of a community and abandonment and rejection. That goes down to some of our deepest human needs and fears. So it is so scary, but it's like there's so much aliveness and exhilaration and deep fulfillment that becomes possible when we're willing to take those risks.
Yeah. What advice do you give to your clients to help them? Like, because obviously, as human beings, we want to stay comfortable and we don't want to enter that risk zone where we're feeling vulnerable or there is potential to fail. So, what advice do you have to people to like do it anyway? Like, how you get
Yeah.
yourself there?
I'm a huge fan of baby steps, but I typically encourage people who it like for the bold leaps, I would say if someone is already feeling very confident and they've failed a couple times and they're less shaky in their own conviction. I've had clients who have quit very steady corporate jobs, walked away, potentially leaving a lot of money on the table because they're like, I need to go pursue this passion, or ended 15-year marriages or big leaps like that. But usually they're in a place where they've done a lot of inner work and they're solid enough on the inside that other people's opinions aren't going to shake them. For the majority of people, especially if they're at the beginning of their personal development journey, I'm just like, start small. Take the tiniest baby steps. Let somebody say somebody's at the beginning of a very traditional career. They've gone through school and they're starting out as an accountant or an account executive at a tech company or like a standard 9 to 5, but they have this little whispering in their heart or like calling in their soul to go do something creative or go perform or start a business or go make music, but they're terrified because they're like, my whole family would just laugh at me and I'll probably fail. And if you don't have to quit the entire career path and go all in on being an artist when you don't even have any proof of concept yet, maybe it's somebody's like, okay, I'm going to keep my day job as an accountant and I'm gonna get a keyboard and just make some music on the weekends, just see what happens. And it's like, how can you honor those little callings, the whisperings? I always talk about like following the breadcrumbs, the little winks from the universe and seeing how does it make you feel? And so much of the time, half the time people are like, I actually don't need to quit my day job and go become an artist. I just need to also make music on the side. Or I need to start painting again. Something that enlivens them, that creates that connection to a deeper sense of self and fulfillment and passion. Sometimes that's plenty. And then other times they start something on the side and then it becomes a side hustle and then becomes a business. And suddenly they're making more money in their business than in their career. They're like, okay, screw it. I guess I'll make the shift.
I love that because it really is just start taking the steps and it can look different for everybody. Do take a risk within your comfort zone. I don't know if that's a thing, but prove to yourself, like, oh, look, I can do this. And then it'll help you do the next thing because you're like, oh, I did it. I can do it again.
It really is just like putting in the reps at the gym. You're not going to walk into the gym and squat 500 pounds your first try. You're going to slowly build up your progression over time. And it's the same thing with risks and being brave and having courage. It's take the tiniest baby steps until those baby steps feel so easy that you're ready for bigger ones. And then it's like compound interest. So you just get bigger and bigger trust muscles with yourself and you grow your risk tolerance and you grow. I love it when someone starts to trust their own intuition and, before they're seeking guidance from like everyone around them and probably asking a lot of people whose advice is going to be very unaligned. And then they start to trust themselves and it's like things start to flow from a much more relaxed and often very magical place the more we turn down the dial on the external expectations and influences and really start to trust ourselves. And it's such a cool thing to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to have people that support you that can maybe help you see like the progress that you've made. Cause a lot of times it's hard to recognize, look how far I've come with
Really.
my confidence or whatnot. Can you talk about like relationships or like resources people can use? I guess I'm leaning a little bit more toward building community. And like, how do you find the people that are going to help you along that path of
That's
building
again like
that trust?
the beautiful part about being alive in the world today is back in the day it was like, who do you know in your town that you could walk to? Or is there a local what are those like Rotary clubs and local, I can't think of the old school networking types of organizations. Now it's like you can literally find anyone on the internet, no matter how weird and out there your interest is. There are other people on the internet who are into it. So it's like and anything to fit in any budget. It's like for somebody who is ready to and willing and has resources to invest at a high level, there are mentors and coaches and masterminds. You could pay 7 figures a year just for one mentor or one program, or you could do it all for free. You could do it all DIY. You could find local meetups. You could find free Facebook groups. The magic combination to me tends to be either some sort of a guide, mentor, coach, teacher, whoever it may be, ideally somebody who has the blank that you want, the life, the business, the career, whatever. Could even be somebody who works in a traditional 9 to 5 in a corporate career, could just be a mentor who's a few years ahead of them. So it's like some sort of a guide who you really respect, who you really look up to, whether it's a person you meet in person or it's an online teacher. It's like a Tony Robbins and you just watch them on YouTube or something. And then peers, like people who are on the same journey. So if you're working in a 9 to 5 and all of your family, friends, and colleagues are 9 to 5ers and you're trying to start a business, you've got to find other entrepreneurs. And it could be entrepreneurs from all industries and or really helpful to find people in the same lane as you. I've typically been doing this for 12 years and I've had a lot of mentors and guides and people, but I've also put myself in rooms full of other online businesses, especially coaches, because we have the same problems, we have the same goals and dreams and desires. And there's something so soothing to talk to other people and realize you're not crazy. This is all just normal stuff for your industry. And sometimes I love getting in rooms with people doing totally different stuff. I love in-person experiences too. I went to an event in the spring down in Malibu with a mentor, and all of us are entrepreneurs, but it was like people across the board. I'm used to mostly hanging out with other coaches online and masterminds and things, but it was like there was somebody who had a dance studio and somebody else who's a hairstylist and who's making an online course for hairstylists, or somebody else who's a TV producer, and then lots of online people too. And it just, when you pay attention to what other people are doing in other industries too, you can get so many creative ideas and inspiration that, oh, hey, how could I apply that to my own industry? But again, just being surrounded by people who get it and who will cheer you on and who hear your ideas and are like, that's amazing. What's the next step? How can I support you? Versus the well-intentioned family and friends who were like, that's too risky. What are you thinking? Why can't you just be like your older sister and work a steady job?
Yeah, definitely. I like this idea of getting together with people who are maybe not necessarily on the same path. I feel like that one's an obvious one, right? If I want to pursue this type of career, I want to meet more people doing that thing, but also finding something adjacent to that as well to broaden your horizons, like, and open your mind to possibility, options, different things that people are doing that maybe they haven't started in doing in your own industry. And then I love that piece of just not feeling alone, not feeling like you're crazy. So I'm curious, along your journey, you did a lot of different things to get to coaching. What are the threads that you found as you look in hindsight that helped you figure out that coaching was what you are meant for?
Great question. And I would say into two different buckets. There was the what am I doing in the world bucket. And then there's the just like my personal desires and lifestyle bucket. And some of the threads in the personal bucket were, it was like those realizations early on, I can't just do 2 weeks of vacation a year. I'm probably not a good, probably pretty unemployable if I'm honest. I got fired from many jobs early on, many being 3, but all for different reasons. But it was one of those early signs that I was like, I do not do well in a paradigm where somebody's going to tell me what to do, what time to be there, what to wear, how to act. Like I just am too much of a rebel to fit into that paradigm. So I was like, pretty much any job where I have a boss, like, is not going to work for me. Huh? So that was a thread.
Yeah.
But then instead of looking at that as like a character flaw, I just was like, so what is it that's important to me? It's so important to me to have freedom, which ultimately meant time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, the autonomy to do work in a way I actually want to versus what somebody's telling me to. So those themes were all there early on, but that could have led to a million different things. I could do a lot of different things that are not 9 to 5. You can have a business selling plastic widgets on the internet through a drop shipping company. But I'm like, the other threads, the impact side or like what I'm doing in the world, is it had to be helping people. I was like, my work in the world, even though I don't know what it is yet, it's about people and it's about helping people in some shape or form. I was like, I'm probably not going to be a therapist. I'm probably not going to be a nurse, but like, how can I help people? And I realized what I love is the empowerment. I love taking somebody from A to B. I love helping them figure out even when I was in fitness, I take them from less fit to more fit. I take them from not really believing their body can do stuff to seeing that their body can actually do stuff and watching them become stronger and become more confident. But I was like, but it's less about their physical body and it's more about their soul, their inner strength. And then those were the things that led me to get there. So it was like, by the time I got there, even though I was just finding coaching as an industry and trying to figure out like, what does that even look like to be a coach? But it was like, I had narrowed down the non-negotiables to I have to be my own boss. I have to have flexibility and I have to be doing something that's meaningful. I can't clock in, clock out. It has to be like helping people and I have to feel passionate about it. I have to feel excited about it. And so once I had all of those kind of parameters, then it got easier and easier to finally figure out what it was.
I narrowing it down to, okay, the top 5 things that I need, I'm looking for my career. And it could that could fit into a lot of different categories, right? But the self-awareness of helping people and then the job fitting into your lifestyle choices.
Exactly. I remember I accidentally created this homework assignment for myself back then that I now give clients as a homework assignment, which was essentially it's like a career wish list. On one side, deal breakers, and on the other side, it's like the hell yes list. On my deal breaker list, it was things like having a boss, sitting in like a sad windowless office, being stuck with a schedule, all that kind of stuff. And then on the yes list, it was like I'm helping people, I'm writing, I'm speaking, I'm traveling the world either for work or work allows me to travel the world. And I had all these things,
Yeah.
but maybe 5 years after I wrote that list, I found it in a drawer and I went back and looked at it and I was like, I have literally created this now.
Yeah.
There's nothing on my no list and everything on my yes list, or those things are in motion.
Yeah.
And I realized how powerful that was just to clarify and then declare it. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. And then once I found the thing, I was like, like it's all here.
Yeah. Absolutely. The power of writing something down. I'm a little bit old school still, so I like the manual journaling. It really is more powerful to actually physically write it out. I don't know the science or like the woo behind that, but I love that example in your life. And I think that rings true for a lot of people that they could say, oh, I wrote that down once and now I have it. Or I gained that clarity and wrote it out as a goal and now it's real. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you discuss a tough moment in your transition to life coaching and how you stayed resilient during that time?
Yeah. So there was a pattern that emerged. I would say this was probably like in my late 20s. It's when I was working in fitness. I hadn't quite found, I was coaching was like on my radar, but I hadn't really registered yet that this could be a path. So I'm working in fitness. I think I was doing 3 things. I think I was bartending, teaching fitness, and working for a startup all at the same time. So I was like very busy, but making almost no money. A typical week would look like this. It'd be like Monday, I'm like inspired. I'm like, okay, I figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I should probably just suck it up and go get a normal job. I'm in San Francisco and go work at like Salesforce. I'll just start at the bottom and I'm going to commit and I'm going to climb the ladder and I'm going to be like all my friends who are working tech jobs. I'm figure it out. And I get all excited. And then Tuesday, I'd be like, no, I can't do the 9 to 5 thing. And then I'm like, you know what? Like, I think I'm an entrepreneur. I need to start my own business and then I can have freedom and all this stuff. But then by the end of Tuesday, I'd be like, what the heck business? Like, I don't even know what that means. And yeah, I'm surrounded by all these Silicon Valley founders who are like making Facebook and Uber. And I'm like, I can't do that. What am I talking about? Wednesday, I would be like, I probably need to get more education. Some of my friends are going off and getting masters and PhDs. And there's this international MBA in France called NCAD. And it's like an executive and MBA. And there's all these people from all over the world. And I speak some languages and that would be really cool. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, what am I talking about? I promised myself I wouldn't go to grad school just to go to grad school. And I would only go if I had a really good reason. And this is not a good reason. So I'd be like, okay, back to the drawing board. And then Thursday, I'd be like, you know what? I grew up in LA. I've always loved singing and dancing and I have the secret desire to be an actor. Maybe I should just go for it and move back to LA and go all in. And then by Friday, I'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? Absolutely not. And then come like Friday or Saturday, I would be on my knees in the shower, just sobbing because I would be so exhausted. And I'm bouncing around. And then I would end up back at square one where I was like, I don't know. What am I doing? I'm almost 30. Am I just going to be bouncing around doing random jobs for the rest of my life? It was so scary. But there was something that kept me going. I think I just had the little voice inside of me, the intuition that was like, you'll get there. Just keep looking, keep searching, keep paying attention to what actually lights you up. Listen for the sparks, the breadcrumbs. And it was around that time that I started getting like the little signs, and I would call it like winks from the universe. When I started really paying attention and being like, I'm going to treat this like a job. My only job right now is to figure out what job I want to have. So I started asking myself a bunch of questions. It was like, what do you do in your free time? Like, I read self-help books. What do you research when you go on the internet? I don't know. I look at personal development stuff and manifestation and confidence and that kind of stuff. And I was like, huh. I'm like, wait a minute, there's probably stuff in that lane. And I was thinking you have to be an author or a speaker. And my concept of a speaker back then was like those like really cheesy 80s and 90s self-help seminars where there's like a guy with slicked back hair and it's in a windowless conference room and there's like a sign with somebody on a mountain with their arms straight up in the air. Like just so cheesy. I started collecting clues and evidence. And then finally I started finding these coaches and was like, wait a minute. I think you have what I want. What's the secret?
Yeah. I love that story because I think it's so relatable. As human beings, I think we just do that to ourselves all the time. Oh, I could do that. Oh, today I'm going to do that. No, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I really do think that starting to get more self aware and paying attention, like you said, to the things that light you up are really important. I was a teacher for a long time. And in the last few years of my teaching, I can remember specific moments where I was like, I wonder why I think I can do this better than so and or what does it say about me that I'm really good at this? And then I think the crux of it was I shared with a trusted friend, right? I'm noticing this about myself, and she's like, why don't you check this job, this career path out? And that is what got my current like career path, my UX design career. That's where I am now because I followed the signs, right? Like I paid attention. And so it's really important for us to start paying attention to ourselves and accepting our strengths, like what we're good at, and also the things that we don't like to do or the things that we're not good at. Be okay with it and embrace who you are and follow what's gonna light you up. So
It makes life a lot more magical too. I think when we can train, I'd say most of us until we come online a little bit more in terms of awareness, we spend most of our time living in the past or living in the future, rather regretting and replaying scenes from the past and thinking we should have done something differently, or we're worrying about the future. It's like anxiety land. And it's if we can train ourselves to be more and more present in the moment and we look around instead of with like frustration and self-criticism and worry, if we train ourselves to just be more curious little by little, then day-to-day life starts to get really interesting when you just start paying like act as if life is full of magic and clues and breadcrumbs. And it will be, you start developing your trust muscle and you look around and, you can believe what you want. I don't think signs have to be like some huge sign from the universe that means this. We can interpret everything how we want to interpret it. And our brains are doing that anyway. So we may as well use it to our advantage. And like, you could be having a totally mundane day where you're just like running errands and you're going to the store and going to the gas station or whatever. But if you just get quiet and get present and pay attention, as you're walking through the aisles of the grocery store, you might notice the branding on a box of food that you're about to buy and it sparks something and it gives you an idea. And then you walk past a person, you make eye contact with them and you make them smile and it gives you a little boost. And then that reminds you of someone that you should reach out to. And it can lead to this whole waterfall effect of all kinds of random little synchronicities and things. And I like to think of day to day life as just this magical cosmic game or adventure. And I'm like, what if every little moment along the way is like an opportunity for magic and synchronicities and realizations? And then it starts to be exactly that because we're expecting it.
Mm, yeah,
It's so fun.
that's beautiful. Love that idea, that possibility and that magic that happens through that story. But how do you like translate that into real life? Because real life can be that way and our brains work that way. Like as human beings, we try to make sense of things and we give them a story, right? And we give them meaning. Can you tell me a little bit about your support system as you have made your career transitions and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, I would say there's different layers of it. There are as much as I love the online world and have leaned into it a lot being an online business, there is so much magic to the in-person connections too. I'm like one of my top 3 love languages is physical touch, and I'm just like, I need my people, I need my hugs and connections, and I've sought out people who are not like-minded in that they have to be the same, but like-minded in that they're excited about life. Like, I tend to spend less and less time with and be less available for people who, are caught up in mostly complaining or who have settled and feel very drab about their life and just complain about how uninspired they feel all the time. Like, I have so much compassion for that, and I choose to mostly not be around it. So I've surrounded myself with people who are doing really interesting things with their lives and their careers. A lot of them are entrepreneurs or doing normal 9 to 5 corporate jobs, but they actually love their careers and they have interesting lives in terms of personal lives and hobbies and lifestyle and things. And so I love being around that, especially in person. I'm also a fitness freak. And so I surround myself with my husband's a health coach and fitness coach friends. And that's like my daily, I think of it as like in the Avatar movies when they plug their
Yeah.
braid into the trees. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's my real life connection to the vibrancy of like people who are living their life. And that's so important to me. And then my husband is like hands down my most important supporter and soulmate. We've been together forever and are both very growth focused and very fierce about supporting each other in each other's growth. And then also how we can grow together. I'm also 6 months pregnant. And so we're preparing for that whole chapter. And I'm 44 too. So it's just like yet another little thing, little milestone on my path of doing everything differently than how we're told we're supposed to do things. We didn't even think we were going to have kids. And then 6 months ago, we're like, should we just do it? Okay, let's do it. And it happened right away. So we're like, okay.
Wow.
But thank you. We're very excited. He's really is like my rock through all of this and our communication and just commitment to openness and curiosity and growth, like across the board. And trust has been huge. So it's like him and then local community of very like-minded people in a decade plus of doing this. I usually spend like a year or two with a mentor, usually in some sort of a mastermind or community, just to be around that peer support. And then oftentimes I get a little, now I need a break. And then I'll do like right now, I don't really have any mentors and I'm like giving myself some palate cleansing and breaks in between different teachers. And then, yeah, family, I love as family. I just don't really go to any of them for business related support. I love sharing about my business when they ask and about my career, but I seek out the support of people who have what I want. And then family I love is family, friends, and stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And in that similar vein, do you have any tips or resources that people can use to start building that self trust, that confidence, and start taking the aligned actions that we've been talking about?
Yeah, probably one of my favorite tips. So I'm a recovering overthinker, and the majority of my clients are overthinkers. And I can speak from experience that slows us down so much, like in every area. And so it's become really important to me. And it's something I preach to anyone who will listen about just start, just get into action and start. Your path will unfold while you're walking on it. You don't need to have the perfect plan. You don't need to have your whole career figured out. You don't need to know all the steps. And in fact, having the perfect plan will probably get in your way because it's probably going to change anyway. And then we get attached to it and all that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
even if you have no idea what you want to do or what you want to be, just start walking in any direction and you'll bump into stuff that will give you more clarity one way or the other. If you're like, I have no idea what I want to do for career, and you're like, let me just get a job. And then that job will teach things that you don't like,
Yeah.
which will help you figure out what you do. And then you just bounce from one little lily pad to the next or one stone to the next where you're like, what would I like slightly more than this job that I hate? Okay, now I have a job and then from there, what do I hate about this? Okay, what would be different at it? So we can figure it all out on the fly, which I know is like terrifying for my planners and the really analytical people and the perfectionists who are like, oh my God, no, but I have to have a plan. Actually, you don't. Or have a plan if that makes you feel better, but then just take action right away, get into the flow, and then be willing to course correct along the way.
Be flexible with that plan. Thank you so much. If anybody is interested in working with you or learning more from you, where can they find you?
So I'm very easy to find. I'm the only one of me. So you can literally just Google my name and it will bring you to all the things. But it's Sandra Possing, which is SandraPosing, and that's sandrapossing.com. And I'm also at Sandra Possing on all of the social medias. And I especially love to connect with people on Instagram. That's like my playground. But you can find everything on my website. And I also have a podcast called Oh Hi Self, which is all about bringing you back home to your authentic self. And I do a combination of solo episodes and guests there as well.
Sandra, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And I'm just for all your wonderful advice. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and a huge thank you to our guest for sharing such valuable insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback helps others discover the podcast, and it means the world to me as I continue to bring you content that supports your career change journey. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're feeling stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill you anymore, I'm here to help. My one-on-one career coaching program is designed specifically for women who are ready to break free from the grind and discover a career that truly excites them. In our sessions, we'll uncover what's holding you back, identify your true passions, and create a clear, actionable plan to transition you into a career that aligns with your deepest values. You can get in touch with me directly at shiftyourdayjob@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on social media at shiftyourdayjob. I'd love to hear from you and support you on this journey. Until next time, I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and together, let's shift your day job.